All right, so today we are diving deep into global strategy. I mean, we're talking cutthroat, you know, boardrooms type stuff. You've given me this really interesting article that gets at a question that's been around forever, really. Do companies win by being like ruthlessly efficient or by, flexing their muscles in the market strategically?
What's so fascinating here is that it's not like an either, right? The article is called Strategizing and Economizing in Global Strategy.
Okay.
It's by Christian Geisler Asmussen and Nikolai J. Foss. And they argue that these two approaches are, completely intertwined.
Mm.
And they could get this. To really illustrate this, we're going to use this, what they call toy model of a licensing deal.
All right.
We can see how these forces play out in the real world.
A toy model.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm intrigued now. I always learn best with a hands-on example.
exactly.
So, where do we even start with this idea of like strategizing versus economizing?
I think the best place to start is by just defining like what these terms mean. So economizing.
Hmm.
Think of that as kind of like the classic business school approach, right?
Right.
It's all about efficiency,
Oh, okay.
cutting costs, optimizing resources, and generally running a tight ship. So
Ugh.
imagine like a company that just meticulously analyzes every bit of its supply chain just to shave off any unnecessary expense.
Right.
That's economizing in action.
Okay, so economizing, it's about doing things the best way.
Yes.
But then we have strategizing.
Yes.
What does that look like in a real company?
So strategizing is about leveraging your power
Yeah.
in the market to your advantage. So it's about understanding that sometimes the most efficient option isn't always the most strategic one.
Okay.
So imagine like a company that chooses a supplier. Maybe it's a little bit more expensive,
Okay.
but that supplier happens to also be a major competitor's like key partner.
Oh, I see.
So by securing that supplier, they've kind of weakened their rival and gained this strategic edge.
Yeah, okay. That's a power move for sure.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a game of chess. You're not just trying to like move your pieces efficiently. You're trying to outmaneuver your opponent.
Exactly, exactly. And what's interesting here is that historically, if you look at international business, the field itself has focused like heavily on economizing.
Hmm.
And you think about it, a lot of the early theories about why companies go global were all about like seeking out lower costs, finding cheaper labor or accessing new resources.
Right. So it's like you're explaining why companies go global, which naturally kind of leads you to a lot of emphasis on efficiency, right?
Right.
But that doesn't mean that strategizing isn't part of the equation.
Absolutely not. I mean, there's tons of real world examples where strategizing takes center stage.
Okay.
Like, for example, have you ever noticed how companies in like the same industry will often follow each other into new markets?
Yeah, yeah.
Like think about, all the tech companies setting up in Silicon Valley
Right.
or like auto manufacturers clustering in like certain regions.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
It's like they're playing like follow the leader.
Right. It's like, well, they're going there, so we have to go there too,
Exactly.
even if it's not the best place for us.
And they may not be making the most efficient move in isolation,
Right.
right? But they're doing it to avoid being left behind by their rivals. It's a strategic move to maintain their competitive position.
Hmm. So it's not just about finding like the cheapest labor or like the most abundant resources. It's about like strategically positioning yourself globally in the market.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm starting to see how these two approaches are kind of like constantly in conversation with each other,
Yeah, yeah.
pushing and pulling.
They are. And to illustrate this even further, let's get to that toy model I mentioned.
Okay, yeah.
So imagine we have a multinational company.
Okay.
Let's call it M&E,
Okay.
super original. And they want to enter a new market.
And in this market, there's a local firm, and they already have like a strong foothold. Think, established relationships, deep market knowledge, maybe even like some manufacturing capabilities.
Okay, so the M&E has like the global brand and maybe like some unique technology.
Right.
And the local firm knows like the ins and outs of this particular market.
Exactly, exactly.
Right.
Now, let's say like the most efficient way for the MNE to enter this market is through a licensing deal with the local firm.
Hmm.
So the M&E licenses its technology,
Hmm.
the local firm handles like the production and distribution, and they split the profits. Think of it like two bakeries on like the same street,
Okay.
and they're both just like, hey, we're not going to compete like directly,
Okay. Yeah.
You focus on cakes, I'll focus on bread, and then, they refer customers to each other. Everyone wins.
Right. Right. They're playing to their strengths and they're maximizing efficiency, right?
Exactly.
But I have a feeling this is where things get interesting.
You bet. Here's where the strategic maneuvering comes in.
Okay.
So the model introduces this idea of fallback assets.
Fallback assets. Okay.
Basically, each company's like backup plan.
Okay.
So like the M&E could invest in developing their own like local market knowledge.
Right.
Essentially, it's like preparing to go it alone if they need to.
Okay.
And the local firm, they could invest in like developing their own technology.
Okay.
So they're not as dependent on the M&E.
So they're hedging their bets, basically.
Exactly. If the collaboration falls apart, they're not like, left high and dry.
Right. They have options.
Exactly. But here's the catch.
Okay.
These fallback assets, while like strategically valuable, they come at a cost.
Okay.
They're not the most like efficient use of resources.
Right. It would be cheaper to just collaborate.
Exactly.
And so it's this like classic dilemma, I guess.
Yes.
Do you prioritize like short-term efficiency or, long-term strategic positioning?
And it gets even more complicated.
Oh, no.
Because what if both companies decide to invest in these fallback assets?
Right.
They both end up spending like extra money, making themselves less efficient, and they might still end up competing like head to head.
Wait, so they could actually make themselves worse off?
Yes.
By being too strategic?
Yes.
That's counterintuitive.
It is. And that's why this model is so fascinating. It highlights how the pursuit of like strategic advantage can sometimes backfire. And it brings us to this concept called the reverse holdup.
Oh, okay.
But to understand that, we need to like go a little deeper into these fallback assets and how they impact, the dynamics of collaboration.
Okay, I'm hooked. Let's break down this reverse holdup and see how it all plays out.
Sounds good. So, we left off talking about how being too strategic can actually kind of backfire.
Yeah.
And we were about to get into this concept called the reverse holdup, which really is all about how these fallback assets, these backup plans that companies develop, can really impact collaboration.
Yeah, that really caught my attention. It's so counterintuitive that investing in like your independence could actually make you less likely to, collaborate successfully.
Right.
Can we unpack that a bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think to really understand the reverse holdup, we need to go back to that bakery analogy.
Okay.
So remember, we had the two bakeries.
Right. One takes, one bread.
One's doing cakes, one's doing bread.
Right.
And they were thinking of like teaming up.
Yeah, to refer customers.
Right, refer customers.
Yeah.
Classic win-win, right?
Yeah, totally.
Everyone benefits. Now, imagine the cake bakery decides to invest in a small, like, bread oven.
Okay.
Not to, like, compete directly.
Yeah.
But just in case.
Just in case, yeah.
The partnership falls apart. They're like, hey, we can, like, bake a few basic loaves if we need to.
Right.
And then the bread bakery, they decide, like, okay, well, we're going to hire a pastry chef.
Right.
Just for like, special occasions, those few cakes that we need.
Right. So they're not abandoning their specialties, but they're like creating options.
Exactly.
Just in case.
Just in case.
Okay.
But here's where the reverse holdup comes in.
Okay.
By investing in these fallback assets, they've actually made themselves less dependent on each other.
Okay.
Right. So the cake bakery doesn't need the bread bakery as much.
Right.
And the bread bakery, well, they can handle a few cake orders on their own.
Right.
So it becomes less essential.
Yeah, even though it's still the most efficient way to, operate.
Exactly. And this shift in power dynamic can, like, really impact their negotiations.
Okay.
The cake bakery might be less willing to, like, share profits.
Right, because they have the oven.
Exactly. They're like, well, we've got this bread oven. We can do it ourselves.
Right.
And the bread bakery is like, well, we have this pastry chef. Like, you need us.
Right. So they're both, demanding more.
Exactly.
More favorable terms. Yeah.
So the act of like preparing for independence actually makes collaboration less appealing and like harder to negotiate.
Yeah. Okay. So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
The more they invest in their fallback assets,
Right.
the less attractive the partnership becomes.
Yeah. And the more likely they are to like end up competing, even though that's not the best for either one of them.
Right. Wow. That's such a fascinating twist. It's like they're inadvertently pushing each other away with these well-intentioned, like, backup plans.
Exactly. And this phenomenon, it's not, like, limited to bakeries, obviously.
Right.
This plays out in industries all over the place.
Right.
Especially in the global market where companies are always navigating, complex partnerships and alliances.
Yeah. Could you give us some like real world examples of how this like reverse holdup might play out,
Yeah.
but on a larger scale?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So imagine you have like a tech giant,
Okay.
and they're partnering with a smaller startup
Okay.
that has developed like this cutting edge AI algorithm.
Okay, cool.
And the tech giant wants to integrate that algorithm into its products.
Right.
And the startup, they want access to, the tech giant's massive user base.
So it's like a match made in heaven.
Right.
Yeah.
On the surface, yes. But now imagine the tech giant starts investing like really heavily in its own AI research division,
Well,
just in case.
just in case, yeah.
And the startup, they start developing their own platform,
Huh.
a way to like reach users directly, if they need to go to loan.
So they're both hedging their bets,
Yeah.
just like the bakeries.
Exactly. Exactly.
Perspective.
And those investments, while strategically smart, can really change the whole partnership.
Okay.
The tech giant, again, might be less willing to share profits or offer favorable terms, knowing that, well, we have our own AI team.
Right, right, as a backup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the startup might demand more control, knowing they have their platform.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like they're both holding a get out of jail free card,
Yeah.
and that changes the game.
Exactly. And sometimes those cards, they get played,
Right, right.
even if it means sacrificing like the efficiency and potential gains of collaboration.
Okay, this is really like blowing my mind. It seems like every strategic move has these like ripple effects.
Right.
And this like interplay between strategizing and economizing is so much more complex than I thought.
It is.
But hold on, we often hear about companies solving these kinds of partnership problems through acquisitions, right?
Right.
Couldn't the tech giant just buy the startup
Right.
and like eliminate all this back and forth?
It's a great question, and it's something that comes up a lot.
Yeah.
But the catch is acquisitions don't always solve this reverse holdup problem.
Really? Why not? I would think that having, full control would just get rid of all this like strategic gamesmanship.
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
But the key here is that these investments in fallback assets, they often happen before any acquisition talks even begin.
Okay.
So in our tech example, the giant's already building their AI team. The startup's already developing their platform.
Right.
By the time they sit down to negotiate an acquisition, the balance of power has already shifted.
So the startup has more leverage because they have a viable alternative.
It's
They can just
interesting.
keep growing.
Exactly. And the tech giant might be, less willing to pay a premium price knowing they have their own AI team.
It's like the reverse holdup has already taken effect.
Exactly.
Even
Exactly.
before they even think about the acquisition.
Exactly. And this is why understanding this concept is like so crucial for companies that are operating in the global market, right?
Yeah.
It shows how even like simple decisions like investing in a just-in-case scenario can have these huge ripple effects, right?
Right.
On partnerships and negotiations and just a company's success overall.
Yeah, this is so insightful. I feel like we've uncovered so much about like the hidden dynamics that are at play in global business. But you mentioned earlier that like cultural differences and this liabilities of foreignness can make it even more complex
Yeah,
than this.
absolutely. And those factors are exactly what we're going to be exploring in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
So we'll see how these complexities kind of add another layer of intrigue to this whole interplay between strategizing and economizing.
All right. Can't wait. So we're back, and we've been really like digging into this fascinating push and pull between economizing and strategizing.
Right. That drive for efficiency on the one hand and these like power plays in the market on the other.
And we've seen how these like two forces, they aren't just these abstract ideas,
Yeah.
they're shaping real world decisions about everything from licensing deals to acquisitions.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, so far we've been talking about this, a little abstractly, I guess. But you mentioned before that things get even more complicated when you look at like the realities of the global market, right?
Yeah, because when companies go global, they're not just dealing with like different customers or competitors.
Right.
They're dealing with entirely different cultures and rules and ways of doing business.
So it's not just about like adapting your product or your marketing. It's
Right.
about adapting your whole approach to strategy.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where this idea of liabilities of foreignness comes in.
Okay.
Basically, it's this idea that companies have these inherent disadvantages when they're operating in unfamiliar territory.
Like what kinds of disadvantages?
So imagine you're a company from, say, the United States.
Okay.
and you're trying to, break into the Japanese market.
Okay.
You might not really understand, like, the cultural nuances,
Right.
the unspoken rules,
Mhm.
of business etiquette,
Right.
or even the local regulations. You might have trouble building relationships with suppliers or
Yeah.
distributors.
Right.
Or your marketing campaigns might just fall flat because they don't, connect with local consumers.
So it's like you're playing the game on hard mode.
Yes.
You're not just competing. You're also trying to overcome all these like built-in hurdles.
Yeah, exactly. And these liabilities of foreignness, they can impact like both economizing and strategizing.
Okay.
So on the economizing side, it might mean higher costs, slower operations, maybe even like difficulty finding employees.
So even if you're trying to be like super efficient,
Right.
these liabilities can just throw a wrench in your plans.
Absolutely. And then on the strategizing side, those liabilities can make it harder to gain, market share,
Right.
build up your brand, or negotiate good deals.
So how do companies even deal with these liabilities of foreignness? Do they just kind of accept it as like the cost of doing business globally?
Well, I mean, they could try to, mitigate them.
Okay.
One common strategy is to partner with local companies.
Yeah.
That can give them access to local knowledge, networks, distribution channels,
Yeah.
and it can help them overcome some of those initial hurdles.
So it's like finding a local guide
Yeah.
who can like help you navigate like the unfamiliar terrain.
Exactly. Exactly. Another approach is to just like acquire local companies.
Okay.
And this gives you like immediate access to brands and expertise and relationships.
So instead of starting from scratch, you just buy your way in.
Exactly. Exactly. And then, of course, some companies just choose to go it alone. They
Right.
build their own presence from the ground up.
Right.
And this is probably like the most challenging path,
Yeah.
but it can also give you more control in the long run.
So there's no like one size fits all solution. It
Right.
all depends like on the company's goals and the specifics of the market.
It all comes back to that balance between economizing and strategizing.
Right. Right.
Okay. The key is to understand the specific challenges of the market and make strategic choices
Yep.
that align with, your goals.
This has been like such an eye-opening deep dive. I feel like I have a much better understanding of, how global strategy really works
Yeah.
and how those liabilities of foreignness add like another layer of complexity to everything.
It's a really fascinating field. And it's like constantly evolving
Yeah.
as, the world changes.
So what does all of this mean for our listener? Like what's the key takeaway they can apply to like their understanding of the business world?
I think the biggest takeaway is that global strategy isn't just about being efficient or being powerful.
Right.
It's about understanding how those two things interact.
Right.
Sometimes they work together, sometimes they clash.
Right.
And it's about understanding how those dynamics
Uh-huh.
are affected by these unique challenges of going global.
And as we've seen, there's no easy answer, right?
Right.
It's about carefully analyzing the situation, weighing the pros and cons,
Yeah.
and making choices that are informed by both economizing and strategizing principles.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a dynamic, exciting field.
Yeah,
You need to be able to think analytically and creatively.
I love that. So as we wrap up our deep dive, what's a final thought-provoking question that our listener can think about as they continue to learn about the business world?
I would challenge them to just look at like the companies they interact with on a daily basis,
Yeah.
the brands they buy,
Right.
the services they use, the companies they maybe invest in, and ask, are they prioritizing economizing or strategizing?
Right.
And how are those choices shaping, their products, their marketing, and their success?
Yeah, that's such a great question. It's like a reminder that these concepts aren't just these like theoretical ideas.
Right.
They're happening all around us. They're
Yeah.
impacting our lives as consumers, as employees, as, citizens. So stay curious, keep exploring, and never stop learning about global strategy.